Hey, Coach, I asked Coach Fangio last week if he thought the offense was a little bit ahead of where he maybe expected just those few practices in. Are they where you thought they'd be at this point? I know we're now 7, 8 practices in, but are they where you want them? Are they ahead or are they a little behind?
Well, I think we're working hard. I think you said it as part of your question, but that was our eighth practice together. So that typically your eighth OTA is somewhere back in the spring. But I feel really good about how all our players embrace the Zoom portion of the year. Feel good about their attention to detail, their ability to learn. We go out and practice, we compete. There's always mistakes in practice, but I rarely see the same mistake twice, which is good. And normally when you compete against each other, there's good plays and bad plays. I think sometimes everybody wants to walk away from a practice and say the defense won or the offense won. I've never seen it that way. Sometimes the twos are going against the ones are going against the twos. Sometimes we're working on certain situations that's tilted more toward the offense or the defense. And so the important thing is to learn and to grow and really do a lot of the things that we're going to do during the season. And we have to quickly develop a kind of an inventory of passes that we're going to go to, runs, RPO, the things that we're going to use during the season, and do it quickly.
Next up, Mike Kliss, go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, just anything about the offense, at the skills positions that has kind of jumped out at you that's maybe been a little better than even you thought till you saw them with your own eyes on the field?
I wouldn't say, I knew most of the players, just from afar, but having worked with them, I'm very impressed by how hard they work, their professionalism, and I think it goes top to bottom with our guys. They work extremely hard, and they compete at a high level, and I think that's what's going to help us be a good team.
Next up, Jeff Legwold.
Pat, in the early going here, you made it pretty clear way back in January even, the running backs had to participate in the passing game.
Right.
How do you think they've done thus far? And Philip Lindsay in particular seems intent on showing you he'd like to have a role there.
Yeah, I think the running backs have to be involved. First and foremost with protection. I think it's very hard to play if you can't protect the quarterback, and I've been very pleased. I think Curtis does a great job of instructing them on what to do. I think top to bottom, they really do a nice job of being very, I would say, intense with their protection and making sure they get the right guy blocked. That's first. And then secondly, there are times when, we want to do something with the receivers that gets taken away and the ball gets checked down. And they got to be able to catch it and run with it and make yards. And then there's other times when they're primary. And I think that's what they've done a good job with as well.
Next up, Ryan O'Halloran, go ahead.
Hi, Pat. As you put together this offense, which coaches that you've worked for in the past are probably your greatest influencers?
Well, I've been influenced by everybody I've ever worked with. It goes all the way back to college, and again, I've been influenced greatly by a lot of defensive coaches, from George Perlis to my uncle. I worked with a lot of outstanding, defensive coaches, Mike Zimmer. I worked for Spags at the Rams. I've been around a lot of really good defensive coaches that Jim Johnson kind of took me under his wing when I was in Philadelphia. And so, I have an appreciation from the defensive guys that it is very important to run the ball, that you need to be able to do that and do it well. You have to be able to protect the passer because people have done studies, if the guy's on his back, he can't complete passes. So you have to protect the passer. Now, from an offensive standpoint, my first taste with all of this was with Andy Reid for, 10 years, and so, the foundation of what we call things is really West Coast. I was with Chip Kelly where it was, it was all tempo. So, you add that part of it to it. I was in Cleveland with Mike Holmgren who taught Andy Reid, so, I learned things there. And then, along the way, I was with North Turner and the 3-digit stuff. So what you try to do is put that together and do things that quarterbacks can do. You know, I think the new quarterback these days has the ability to catch the ball in the shotgun and deal it. You know, some of the older age quarterbacks, some of the vintage before quarterbacks, so to speak, they were under center and it was really defined where the ball was going, and you know, it was different. And so I think what you got to try to do always offensively, I've been inspired by a lot of really, really good people and really, really smart minds. And I think it's important that you use the best, but you also have to do what your guys can do and do well.
Next up, Eric Dalala, go ahead.
You know, Coach, how has Drew handled the offense so far as you guys have been installing it? And then where have you seen him take steps forward from what you saw on film from him last season?
Yeah, I think he's done a good job. You know, I think from an installation standpoint, you know, he's doing a really good job with knowing what the concept is and going out there and executing. You know, there are times, and this is part of his nature. I call them the 60-yard checkdowns, you know, where he can break out of the pocket, keep his eyes down. He does a good job of keeping his eyes downfield, which I think is part of being youthful. I think it's part of him trying to, you know, continue to make plays. Sometimes your biggest plays come on scrambles, and because it's not always perfect. And so I think he's doing a good job there. The details and the tactics of things, I think he's getting better with all that. And quite frankly, for guys that come out of no huddle operations, you know, it's sad to say, but just working under center and being in the huddle calling a play. Although that seems to be natural for quarterbacks. In the old days, that's all we did. We played under center and you called plays in huddles. When they come out of college, sometimes they're looking at cards. They get one word. They barely have an alternate snap count. And so even though he's done a good job with that, those are things that he's constantly working on.
Next up, Mark Kisler, go ahead, please.
As you mentioned, you got a compressed period of time here to get ready. You got young players, new concepts. How patient have you had to be? Do you measure success maybe different than you would in another year? And how different might this offense be in December than it is on opening night?
Well, I think we're all going to have to grow. I mean, we got 22 days we're going to be playing a game. So I think every offense this year is going to grow. Every team's going to grow from week 1 until week 16. It happens anyways. But, you know, but I think the important thing is no matter what you choose to do offensively, you got to do what the players do best and what they can execute. And I think that's where we're at, and that's where our focus is. By nature, I've learned to be, but by nature, I'm not a very patient guy, but that's the way it goes.
Next up, Darren McKee.
Those are more my issues than.
Coach, a couple questions for you. First, it looks like you got a pretty nice competition at center. So I'm not asking, you know, who's going to win it, but I'm curious, when do you think you need to decide on that? And then my second question is, in light of COVID, has there been some thought about even a fourth quarterback being brought in?
Yeah. Well, the first question about the centers, you know, sometimes, and again, the way training camps are structured, if you can think about it, regardless of who you're snapping the ball to, sometimes the twos are playing against the ones. So they're getting, you know, obviously they're working against the front line, you know, and so sometimes the guys working twos, you know, in a certain segment of practice are getting a little bit better than the ones working against the twos. So you get all that. You know, time will tell in terms of the center, but they're all getting work. They're all snapping the ball to Drew. And so the rotation in there has been good. You know, and time will tell on that. And I'm sure you check back with Coach Fangio, he'll keep you posted on all that. And then the second part of your question was?
Possibility of a fourth quarterback being added.
Yeah, the fourth quarterback. You know, that's a you know a question for John Elway and his staff. You know, I think we have a philosophy, but you know, this isn't the time or place for me to reveal that.
Last two, Troy and then Zach. Go ahead, Troy.
Coach Shurmur, thanks for the time. I know it's only 8 practices, but what do you got in Jerry Jeudy, the rookie receiver? What are your eyes telling you so far?
Well, you know, he's got really good instincts. You know, he's a very good route runner. you know, a lot of receivers come out of college and they don't have a great feel for bump and run, you know, because quite frankly, sometimes defenses don't challenge as much in college as they're going to get challenged here. And he's done a good job working against bump and run. He does know how to wiggle himself open. He's been able to make some explosive plays for us, but then there's the little things that he's got to just continue to work on. You know, it's for some of these guys, this is 8 times for us working together, but they've been in the league a few years. This is 8 times working together, and he just got here. So you can imagine the challenge for him. This is a really, really, really tough year for first-year players. You know, in most years, you would have come in with 10 OTAs, a mini camp, all that extra time we spent with rookies that was kind of off the books in previous years. You know, you come into training camp having watched yourself do it. You know, you got reps with the starting quarterback. So, you know, it's going to be a real challenge for rookies this year, in my opinion, because they don't have that foundation that you get in a normal year. But you know what? So be it. All 32 teams are dealing with it. And so it's very, very important that our older players, and I'll give Cortland, I'll give Deshaun, I'll give Tim, I'll give those guys credit. They've really put their arm around, you know, the young guys, and they're trying to bring them along. And that's a very important piece this season is talked about it yesterday, you know, as an organization. You know, it's very important. It's very important that the older guys help lead the younger guys. And I feel like in that group, you know, even though those players are not like old, salty vets, they're old enough to be older than Jerry Jeudy, and they've done a good job of leading him.
Last one, Zack Stevens. Go ahead, please.
Coach, thanks for talking with us. Speaking of Cortland, where have you seen him take steps from last year, and where do you want to continue to see him take steps?
Yeah, you know, I don't know that. I mean, it's not a fair comparison for me because I haven't seen him in games yet. I wasn't around him last year in practice, so it's hard for me to compare last year, but he's got a very professional approach. He works hard out there every day. Every rep is full speed. You can tell he's trying to get himself into game shape. And so, you know, I wasn't here a year ago, so the comparison is not, you know, wouldn't be fair for me to compare, but we like what we've seen so far.